Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Sharon Spurlock, the Senior Director of Family Education at the St. Louis ARC. Welcome to our weekly Q&A. Today, we're going to be talking about Social Security, which is always a hot topic here at the St. Louis ARC. Casey, can you tell everybody a little bit about you?
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. My name again is Casey Stevens. I am the Associate Director of Midwest Special Needs Trust. And today we're going to talk a little bit about Social Security and overpayments. So thank you for joining me this afternoon. And we're just going to jump in and get started. And just the tiniest bit about us, if you haven't heard of us, we are celebrating our 36th anniversary. This year, we were established in state statute in 1989 to administer special needs trusts. We are a local nonprofit that serves Missouri and all of the surrounding states, and we are what's considered a pooled trust organization. So we will talk about special needs trusts at the very, very end, because that's something that we can do with our back pay. But I always like to give just a little bit of information about MSNT. In addition to our trust services, we also have our charitable grant program, which some of you may have heard of. We're not going to speak about that today, but if you do have questions, our contact information is at the end. So Social Security back pay, what is it? Why would you get it? How do you get it? And what does that mean for the benefits that you might already be receiving or soon to be receiving? So Social Security back pay is also called retroactive benefits. Essentially, Social Security says you became disabled before we determined you disabled. And so they are looking at you can go back about 12 months. They're going to, in some instances, they may go back a little bit further, but in most instances, they're saying that you were disabled at maximum 12 months before they determined you disabled. And they're going to say you get this much a month times 12, right? So they're saying you get that $967. You qualify for SSI. You get $967 a month. We're going to go back 12 months. So $967 times 12. And that's going to be your back pay amount. Social Security can also determine, maybe we didn't determine you did get enough money. Or maybe we miscalculated something. They can also give you a back pay for that, issued for both SSI and SSDI. So it doesn't matter which one you've applied for, because essentially the application is for both. If you were determined disabled you were determined disabled before they determined you disabled, then you will receive a back payment. And I misspelled income there. SSI is usually issued in installments. So they don't want to give you that huge lump sum. They break it out. What I will give for Social Security is that they send you those letters over and over again, right? You get lots of mail from Social Security, all of the information on how they determined your back pay, how they determined how much you would receive, what your total benefit is. It's all in that letter. So 12 pages sometimes of Social Security letters will tell you exactly what you need to know about your back payment. And you always have the right to appeal that decision or to challenge them on the amount. You can uphold your appeal rights. Those are something that you always have the right to do. But essentially, back payment is when Social Security has determined that you became disabled before they determined you disabled. So when we talk about back payment and we say, how does that impact our public benefits? We're looking at two major public benefit programs. Those two major public benefit programs are SSI, so Supplemental Security Income, and Medicaid. We're not going to talk about HUD housing. We're not going to talk about food stamps today. And you notice I'm not talking about SSDI and Medicare, right? Because those aren't public benefits. And I know the St. Louis ARC has some really great webinars to learn the difference between all of those. But we're going to talk about SSI and Medicaid. So Social Security, you've gone through the process to be determined disabled, right? They said, yep, you are disabled per our rules, and here is your back payment. And then all of a sudden they say you can only have $2,000 in assets per month. And you're like, wait a second. I just got this huge lump sum. And they're also saying you have to earn less than $1,971 a month. And I just got this huge back payment. What do I do? What do I do? Right? Medicaid says you can have income of less than $12,801 in monthly income, and your assets are less than $5,909. Now there are some exclusions to both of those things. These are just the bare bones basics. So when we're looking at our public benefits and we're looking at Medicaid, we're looking at SSI, and we're saying Social Security has determined me disabled, and I got this back payment. What is the amount of that back payment? That's our first question. And what program am I already on, or did I just become qualified for that it's going to impact? So we're going to look at that next. So for SSI, the nice thing is that SSI says you have 9 months to spend the funds before the funds become accountable assets. So Social Security says you've been determined disabled. Here's your back payment of, let's say $9,000. It's a lot of money, right? You can have that $9,000 in your bank account for 9 months before Social Security comes and says, hey, that's a countable asset. Those funds also don't count as income. So for Social Security, you're okay with that $9,000. Medicaid, on the other hand, says you have to the end of the month. You got to spend those funds because they're going to be a countable asset. And by the way, they count as income in the month received. So our rules for one program don't match our rules for another program, Missouri, right? In other states they do, in Missouri they don't. And so we have to figure out what to do. If you're on Medicaid benefits, you get waiver services, you're going to day program, you work, you're getting transportation services. All of those things are covered by Medicaid. And you say, oh my goodness, what do I do? Right? What do I do? Well, what we don't want to do is we don't want to panic. That's our first thing, right? The first thing, so we go back, we got our disability from Social Security. They send us a back payment of $9,000. First thing we're going to do is we're going to say, how much was that check, right? How much was that check? $9,000. Oh, we're over the asset limit for Social Security. All right, for SSI, that asset limit is $2,000. We have 9 months to spend it, right? So SSI, we don't need to worry about quite yet. But we have Medicaid. Medicaid's asset limit is significantly higher than Social Security. It's at $5,000, almost $6,000. Oh, 9,000 is more than 6,000. We better act fast because we have to the end of the month. Now, there are lots of ways. We're going to talk about these ways, but there are lots of ways that we can solve this problem. If we got, so let's take, for example, we got a back payment of $4,000. Okay, let's check that one. So if we have a back payment of $4,000, we say, okay, how much is that check? It's $4,000. For SSI, the asset limit's 2, but I have 9 months. So I think I can do something in 9 months with that $4,000. Medicaid, that asset limit is $5,909. Oh, 4 is less than $5,900. So we're okay for both. We don't need to panic. We want to panic, right? Because we've just gotten this big back payment and it's a lot of money. We don't know what to do with it. We got letters from Medicaid. We got letters from Social Security. But when we boil it down to it, when we look at the very, very bare bones of it, that back payment is less than the Medicaid asset limit. And I have 9 months to spend it for Social Security. So we don't have to panic, right? If we're at that 9-month mark and Social Security is saying, hey, you have not spent that $4,000, you're over the asset limit by $2,000. Okay, let's figure out how we can do that. But if we have 4,000, we're good, right? Because we can figure out how to spend that fairly quick. We're at 9,000. We got to move kind of fast. So we're gonna talk about some of the best ways to do that. So I say Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but not Maslow's hierarchy of needs. This is clearly not what Mr. Maslow came up with, but it is something I came up with. What do you need? Right? So the first thing is I have this $9,000. Medicaid saying, oh, you better spend it. It's going to count as a countable asset. You're going to lose your benefits. What are you going to do? I'm going to pay my debts first. What do I owe? Who do I owe? And how do I owe it? Pay those medical debts. Pay those credit card debts. Pay off your car. Right? Get those taken care of so that you don't have to worry about them in the future. Pay your housing costs. Are you behind on utilities? Are you behind on your rent? Are you behind on your phone bill, your cable bill, your cell phone bill? Pay them up for a year even. That way it's one less thing for you to have to worry about going forward. Purchase clothing. Do a little shopping, right? You got $9,000. Do a little shop. Let's not go overboard, but everybody wants a nice new outfit. Everybody needs a new set of PJs and slippers, right? Buy some clothing or household items. Maybe you've been looking at that recliner and you really want that recliner. Maybe you need a new couch. Maybe you need some durable medical equipment that Medicaid hasn't covered. Buy what you need, right? You have $9,000 to do that. Buy the things you need. So pay your debts, right? Pay your debts. We always want to do that first. We don't want to owe any money. Pay your housing costs, get your rent caught up, get your utilities caught up, pay your cable bill, purchase clothing or other household items. The next thing I always say is purchase a vehicle. So if you can drive and you have your driver's license and you have nothing hindering your driving, then buy yourself a vehicle. If you can afford a vehicle, buy yourself a vehicle. Take a trip. Take a little, even if it's a staycation. You go from one St. Louis suburb to the other St. Louis suburb and you spend a nice long weekend, right? Take a trip. Utilize those funds to pay for something that you enjoy. After you've paid down your debts, your housing costs, your clothing, your household items, maybe you don't want to purchase a vehicle. Okay, take a trip. Do something with those funds. The last thing I always say, if you've heard me say it once, you've heard me say it 1,000 times, purchase an irrevocable prepaid burial policy. I can't tell you how many times families have called me, one today, even in particular saying, I didn't purchase the funeral policy in time. Now their loved one has died without a funeral policy and the family is left with the burden, right? They're expensive. They could take up that 9,000 in a heartbeat, right? So always purchase a prepaid burial policy, pay toward a policy, whatever is necessary. So when we're looking at our hierarchy of needs, I could easily spend $9,000 on this list alone, right? You could just send me to Walmart and I'm going to be real happy. I could do $1,000 at the drop of the hat, right? May not need everything I buy, but may need some of it, right? What we don't want to do is spend frivolously. What I've seen people do is they buy 3 TVs or they take an extravagant trip. I'm not saying take an extravagant trip. I'm saying take a little trip, right? But then they're still stuck with debt and they still haven't paid their rent and they still are needing clothing and household items. Pay what you need first. Pay those debts, pay those housing costs, pay the clothing, the household items, and purchase a vehicle. Those are the most important things you can do. If you can drive and you want to be independent and you need a vehicle, purchase a vehicle or make a huge down payment toward a vehicle, right? Say we've spent we have 9,000, we've done all of our hierarchy of needs. And now what do we do? What's left? let's say we paid our debts, we got our medical costs all taken over, they're good. We paid our housing costs, everything's caught up, even paid ahead. We've purchased our clothing, our household items. I don't need a vehicle. I don't want to drive. Took my trip. And I already had a prepaid burial policy. My daddy bought that for me. We still have $6,000 left. So I'm just going to go back real quick. So if we're looking at this, we've spent $3,000 in a very short amount of time. So we got our SSI asset limit at 2,000. So we still have 9 months to spend it, right? So that's okay. We have our Medicaid asset limit at 5,909. Oh man, we're still over. We don't want to spend frivolously. We don't want to give it away. We don't want to go gambling. No, we shouldn't be gambling our back payment away. What else can we do? There's a couple of more things. One of the things that I always recommend you do is an ABLE account. So for an ABLE account, there are many, many, many webinars on the ABLE account. I'm going to give the briefest overview possible. Consider disabled before the age of 26, maximum deposit of $19,000 per year, and must be used for qualified disability expenses. And you could go to moable.com to learn more. The ABLE account is a wonderful tool to utilize for your back payments. It's wonderful. You've spent $3,000 on the items and services you needed, and you're like, I still don't know what to do. You can put it in an ABLE account. You have that for you going forward. You don't even have to spend all of that $6,000 that same year. It can be there for the long term, right? It can be there for in 3 years when you maybe have some other expenses that you've accrued over the years. So the ABLE account is a wonderful way. It's under $6,000 or it's under $19,000 per year. You're spending the funds within 30 days, spending them right. You've bought your $3,000 worth of things, and then you're putting it in the ABLE account. You've met the 9-month requirement for SSI, and you've met by the end of the month for Medicaid. This is a great way. You can put all of those funds. You can take that $9,000 and put it all in the ABLE account. I love that. That's a great way to use it. When we had our $4,000 example, and we were meeting the qualifications for Medicaid, and we were meeting 9 months for Social Security, we could put that all in an ABLE account, get that started, right? And then we can contribute more if we started working. So the ABLE account's a great way. As an alternative, so always want to advocate for it. It's a wonderful tool. Fantastic for individuals who are able to manage their own funds. Sometimes individuals aren't able to do that for whatever reason, or they need a little extra oversight. So a special needs trust can help solve that problem as well. We get a lot of trust funded. So this is what I do. I administer special needs trust. This would be considered a first party trust. With a special needs trust, there's no age requirement, there's no maximum deposit, and distributions are called allowable. So a little bit different than a qualified disability expense. But this is also someplace that you can take those funds, whether it be 9,000 or 6,000 or even 4,000, put them in a special needs trust, and there's no impact to your benefits. There's been no impact to your Medicaid. There's been no impact to your SSI. You've utilized the funds within 30 days, and you're good, right? We don't have to panic. So when I talk to families and I get that phone call, they've gotten those 12-page letters from Social Security, and Social Security is saying, we sent you $15,000. We sent you $15,000. What are you going to do about it? Well, let's not panic. Let's look at that dollar amount first, right? And break it down. SSI, we have 9 months to figure out. Medicaid, we got to the end of the month, but we think we can pay off some things first, and we can do some things. And then once all of our needs are met, our hierarchy of needs are met, then we can talk about ABLE account or special needs trust, or maybe even both in some circumstances. Or you skip over all of that and you're like, I don't have any needs. I don't need anything taken care of. Everything's met. Okay, so you now can consider potentially the ABLE account or the special needs trust. Each are going to do something different. Each have their advantages. I'm not going to make those decisions for you, but the information is out there for you. And so this is our contact information. If you have questions either about today or about what to do with a back payment, or interested in learning more about special needs trust, feel free to give us a call. We are happy to talk about that. And we'll get to your questions.
And we've got quite a few. We've got an active audience today.
I love that. This group is always, I will give it your attendees
we got
to
some
your
savvy
webinars.
folks with the ARCs, don't we, Casey?
Yeah, you guys ask great questions.
Some of it's just clarifying, and then there's a couple that I'm looking forward to the answer. So the first question, you said that it typically would cover up to 12 months. Is there a scenario where you might get several years worth of back pay?
If you have gone through that appeals process, you have been denied and appealed and denied and appealed and denied and appealed. There is a chance, and usually in those circumstances, there's an attorney involved by that point, right? You've appealed, and it's taken a long time. You could get more than 12 months for sure, especially with
what
SSDI.
I figured it was an appeal situation.
Yeah.
Thanks for proving me right. I love it.
You're welcome.
I love this question. How would Medicaid know that you got the back payment from Social Security?
Medicaid and Social Security talk to each other daily. They share a system. And so they can see what you're receiving, and how much it is. And if it is gone, both Social Security and Medicaid share that system. In Missouri, our system is a little bit different in that Medicaid and SSI don't have to follow the same rules. But in other states, so if you moved over to Kansas or Illinois and Kansas, their Medicaid and SSI system match. They talk to each other because if you qualify for one, you qualify for another. But here in Missouri, they do talk to each other, and Medicaid will become aware that you received that. Yeah.
One of our guests asked if you can ask for the back pay to be delivered in smaller installments so that you stay under the asset limit.
With SSI, they do it in installments, likely to help with some of that. I don't know if you can ask for it though. Probably with SSI, if you were getting a large enough sum, you could ask that it be chunked out and under certain ways because they're already going to send it to you installments. I don't know about SSDI, if they will send it to you installments or not.
Okay. Personally, I'd rather take the money and put it in an ABLE account or a special needs trust. So I've got control of that money, but I understand that for some people that might be not their best option. So,
right.
And we've got a question just for clarification. Does that 9 months start from the date you receive the back pay? Not the date you applied. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. That was a yes, head nod. Two more questions. One is a follow-up to the Medicaid asset limit. So if it shows up in the Medicaid system, does that trigger them calling you, or do they just wait to see if you don't mess with the money and then cancel your Medicaid?
They're going to send you a letter that says you're a Jeopardy. So I don't think they're going to call you. I don't think Medicaid's made any calls in many years, but they're definitely going to send you a letter that says you are a Jeopardy and need to get this taken care of. And it's one of those scary letters, right?
Like yeah, but at least you're getting a letter.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think people forget what they have to do to be reinstated annually and do these other things. And then all of a sudden the Medicaid's gone and then you have to scramble to redo it. So I'm glad to get a scary letter sometimes rather than just be cut off. And I'm going to ask this, even though we're at 3:30, I'm sure it's very hard for you to know this. However, there's a lot of things happening at the federal level right now. So do you have any insights into things families should be watching for, advocating for, or looking at related to their SSI benefits?
I don't, unfortunately. What I say is just be vigilant, keep watch on your mail. Always want to make sure you have the most up-to-date information at the Social Security office. If you're working, send them your pay stubs. If you're receiving benefits, continue to update your information, go on to ssa.gov, check your information on a regular basis, advocate for yourself and others if that's something that you feel like you need to do. But no, I don't have any other insight into the
We're
world that is
all a little bit
absolutely
on pins
changing.
and needles
Yeah.
right now. So
Yeah.
so be paying attention. There was a rule that came out this last week that we're still trying to sort through. So as we learn more, we're going to start including advocacy alerts in every one of our family newsletters. So if you're not getting an email from us on Wednesdays, please let Brianne know. She's the one that's emailing you about these webinars. She will be able to get you on that list, and let her know if you want to be mark the checkbox that says you're an ARC advocate, because only the families that tell us we want advocacy alerts are going to receive those. And we are sending quite a few advocacy alerts out right now about Medicaid and other issues at the federal level. So it's unusual, but we think it's really important that people are having their voices be heard. So, Casey, that was such a good 30 minutes. I learned so much. Thank you.
Good. Well, I'm so glad. Anytime that you guys have questions, you have my contact information. Feel free to email us. And thank you for giving me your time this afternoon.